Father Matthew Carson had seen many horrors in his 20 years as a priest, but nothing like Anna Walsh. She was a devout woman, known for her kindness and unwavering faith, but something had taken hold of her, something ancient and evil. What began as strange outbursts and violent fits soon escalated into something much darker. The town whispered of possession, and Anna's family, desperate and terrified, called for the church. When Father Matthew arrived at the Walsh home, the air reeked of rot and decay. The house itself seemed sick, the paint peeling from the walls and the windows streaked with grime. The air was heavy, thick with the stench of sulfur. As he stepped inside, an overwhelming sense of dread hit him like a wave. John Walsh, Anna's husband, greeted him at the door, his face gaunt, eyes wide with sleepless fear.
She's in the basement. We had to chain her down. Nothing else would hold her.
John said in a low, trembling voice. Father Matthew nodded, gripping his Bible tightly, and followed John down the creaking stairs. Each step felt heavier, as if the weight of the evil below pulled at him. The basement was dimly lit, with a single flickering bulb casting long shadows across the room. And there, in the center, lay Anna, bound by heavy iron chains that rattled as she writhed. But it wasn't just Anna anymore. Her body had twisted, her limbs unnaturally elongated, her skin stretched tight over sharp, protruding bones. Her eyes glowed with a fierce yellow light, and her mouth curled into a cruel, jagged grin. Her body moved as though something far larger was struggling to fit within her frail frame, her joints cracking and popping with each unnatural contortion.
"Father Carson,"
she rasped, her voice layered with a deep guttural growl beneath it.
or should I say, Matthew.
He froze. The demon had never heard his name, never met him, yet it spoke as though it had known him for years. "In the name of God, reveal yourself," Father Matthew said, stepping forward, his voice strong, despite the fear gnawing at his stomach. Anna's head jerked back, her neck twisting at an impossible angle. Then her chest swelled as the creature within her pushed itself further to the surface. From her back erupted great jagged spines, curling up and out through her flesh, tearing her skin. Her spine bent backward, bones snapping and shifting. Her body began to grow larger, stretching and warping until she was no longer recognizable as human.
What am I? I am Azazel, the Harbinger.
With those words, Anna's body contorted further, expanding in size until standing before him was a towering figure with limbs like elongated bone, its skin taut and slick, its face a horrifying mixture of human and something else. A creature that had only worn human form as a mask, its back arched grotesquely, the spines protruding like blades, and its fingers ended in long, razor-sharp claws. Its head, a twisted mockery of Anna's, had no eyes now, just deep, hollow sockets where the glowing yellow light blazed. Father Matthew stared, his mind racing to comprehend the enormity of what stood before him. This was no mere demon. This was something far older, far stronger, a being that should have never crossed into the human realm.
Your prayers are useless.
It said, its voice like the grinding of stone. The demon's mouth split wide, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth, far too many for any human mouth to hold.
Oh, I am not some lesser spirit. I am the end of your faith, the beginning of something far darker.
With a roar, the creature lunged, the chains straining and rattling as it struggled against its bonds. Father Matthew stumbled backward, holding up his crucifix. The thing paused, its grin widening as it leaned in closer, sniffing the air around the holy symbol.
You cling to your relics, but they cannot protect you from what I am.
It mocked, the chains creaking as it tugged at them causing the floor beneath to crack. Father Matthew raised his voice, beginning the exorcism rites. His words were strong, but the creature laughed, a deep, rattling sound that reverberated through the room. As he spoke, the demon's body pulsed, the flesh on its back tearing open further, revealing the writhing, grotesque mass beneath.
You dare challenge me?
Azazel roared, its voice filling the space, shaking the walls.
I have waited eons to be freed. Do you think your feeble words will send me back to the pit?
Father Matthew continued, louder, more forceful. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he recited the ancient texts, his voice steady even as the ground beneath him began to tremble. The demon thrashed violently, its claws raking the air, but the chains held. Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped, the flickering bulb overhead shattering with a loud pop. The basement was plunged into darkness, but the demon's eyes burned brightly, casting an eerie glow across the room. And then with a deafening crack, the chains snapped. The creature lunged forward with terrifying speed, its claws slashing toward Father Matthew. He barely dodged in time. The demon's claws slicing through the air just inches from his face. It roared in fury, the sound shaking the very foundation of the house. Desperation filled him as he raised the crucifix high. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, I cast you out. The creature faltered, its massive form shuddering as if struck by an invisible force. It howled, its body convulsing violently, its elongated bones snapping and twisting. Father Matthew continued, his voice rising above the demon's screams, repeating the exorcism, the words pouring from him like a flood. The demon thrashed, but something was happening, the light from its eyes dimming, its form beginning to shrink back into itself. With one final earth-shaking roar, Azazel collapsed to the ground, its monstrous form shrinking, contorting, until Anna lay on the floor. Her body remained frail and bruised, marked with long scars where the demon had torn through her. Her breathing was shallow, barely perceptible, and her skin, pale and cold to the touch, told the story of a woman who had been pushed beyond the limits of human endurance. Though the demon seemed dormant, its presence had ravaged her, leaving her broken but alive. Father Matthew knelt beside her, whispering prayers of relief. He had completed the rites, the words of exorcism echoing in the basement, and the demon had recoiled, its form shrinking. Yet, as he looked at Anna's battered body, a deep unease gnawed at him. It felt unfinished, as though something lingered in the air. He had expected peace, but instead, the silence felt thick, unnatural. Anna stirred, her eyes fluttering open just slightly. Her lips barely moved as she whispered,
It's not gone. It's still here.
Father Matthew's heart sank. The demon hadn't been cast out, it had only retreated, waiting. The battle wasn't over. He had underestimated Azazel's strength, and now he realized that the creature had never truly left.